I love it when a plan comes together. This is the final in the 4-week series of Reset-ember of 2024, the reveal of Lionheart of Humanity. After the ad read and after the open rolls, Josiah will be here and we will talk about this new upcoming hero from Gamble Comics. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular here at Mr. Super Oz, I just want to thank you for tuning in to the channel. It exists because I, Oz, from the channel Mr. Super Oz, I wrote a 68-page graphic novel called Everlasting Survivors. Volume 1 is called All Day Long. If you follow the link in the description of this video, you can get yourself hats, shirts, posters, all kinds of fun things. But most importantly, you can get the story itself. And the more people that pick up the story, the greater the chances are that there can be continued adventures with these heroes. If you could, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment, enjoy. Josiah, thank you for joining me in this journey.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's both exciting and uneasy to bring others into this world. But the reason I brought you and Brandon in is because, I mean, you guys are among my closest friends, and I appreciate all that you do, both for the channel and just in general being there for me. And so it's like I said, I appreciate it. Mm-hmm. And with that, I just felt comfortable saying, "Hey, here's where my head's at. Here's where things are going." And to be honest, if ever, I'm not gonna say if, when the project, whenever Gamble Comics, the endeavor gets bigger, I would love to bring you guys on full time, make this be what everybody's job is, per se, conceptually that is. Because I know Brandon, one of his goals is to write. I think it's more screenplays than comics, but I mean, writing's writing, and especially
if we can do Gamble screenplays, we can make that work.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if money was no object, I would love to. This is not specifically about this particular hero, but I love the idea of the interplay of stories weaving in and out of different mediums. Kind of how James Gunn has said it doesn't matter if it's live action or animation, his films are, in his DCU, are tied together. Well, I see it that way in a perfect world where stories being told with Gamble Comics heroes, if the story is happening in a video game, it's still happening within the universe. If it's happening,
everything's canon.
Exactly. If it's happening in a comic, it's still true, and if it's happening in an animated movie, it's still true. It all makes sense because, again, have yet to get to the hero, but this is important, and this is just life important. Often, recently, I've been getting frustrated with employment situations because when companies get very big, there's no connection. Or as I often say to people, the folks in power don't have skin in the game.
Yeah.
And so one of my goals with Gamble Comics is to always stay connected with the product being put out. Like I said, no matter what it particularly is, whether it's a comic, which is what we're talking about today, or if down the line it's a video game or an animated movie, or even, like I said, live action at some
At some point in the
some
future.
point in the future, yeah, then to always be caring about it. This actually goes way back to one of my earliest videos talking about Tommy Wiseau and George Lucas and the concept of,
I remember this one.
vision, although in this case it's, being hands-on, because in both cases they were very caring about their product. I mean, until one of them
Until they
stepped away. But yeah, so this particular hero, or this character that we're talking about, Lionheart of Humanity, at one point the story was called something different, because I have a fondness for Google Translate, where I'll put in either a word or a phrase and see what comes up.
Right.
Because I tend to try and be big when it comes to the stories I tell, whether it be away from where I currently am or just far away in general, like showing the vastness of this of this comic world. And so with that, the primary character, his name is Josephus, he gets an inheritance, and his inheritance is an ancient artifact that I looked up what it meant to, or what it would be if it was called by its native language, or where it came from. And it was Assad Qualb, I believe is
how you pronounce that. All right.
I believe that's how it was pronounced.
Yeah.
Because again, the beauty of Google Translate is it'll tell me.
Yeah, it'll just say it for you. That is very
and so very helpful. And like I said, for a while, that's the name of this story. But it was funny. It was actually during a meeting with Aaron Johnson, who has been on the channel, I think, 3 or 4 times now, and is currently working on BC Brute. It was when I was explaining to him the namesake of, or what the name meant, I was like, you know what? That's going to be a never-ending battle of saying, this is what that means. So why don't I just call the story what it means, and then drop in the local phraseology throughout.
Vernacular.
Yeah, in the story.
Yeah, okay.
And so Assad Qualb means Lionheart of Humanity. And
which is a dope name.
Yeah, it's a very heroic title. So in the context of the story, Josephus, the main character, he's riding pretty high when we meet him.
Yeah,
he's
really feeling himself.
He's
in a voiceover session.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's in my mind. Now, granted, I didn't completely rip this off, but in my mind he is Robin Williams levels of doing voice work from Mrs. Doubtfire when he is unemployed, right? Because the unemployment lady, for lack of a better term, I forget her. I don't know. What do you call people who work at the unemployment office?
Dead inside.
That's awesome. So she was like, "Oh, what are your talents? What do you bring to the table?" And he's able to just be Robin Williams.
Yeah.
And so, while I couldn't precisely script out this guy's Robin Williams quality of voice work, that's how I envisioned his delivery, and that's kind of why.
Yeah, and that's what I picked up when I was reading it. Just
because
very
both
high levels of expression.
The director and the producer inside the recording booth were very into his work.
Yeah, very thumbs up, very very happy.
And so when he takes, I'm gonna say 5 for the sake of argument, when he takes a break, that's when everything in the story takes a turn, and things are no longer.
Hunky-dory.
Yes, the ideal situation. And it's brought to Josephus's knowledge that his grandfather has passed away. And not only is that in and of itself a devastating news to be gotten, but it also affects him.
Speaking from recent experience, it's not fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you helped me through that experience on the channel, because I think it was it was either right before or right after Forbidden Door. I know you basically carried that episode because I was just not with it.
Yeah, I understand. It's definitely a down point when you lose someone close to you, especially someone who's been there your whole life, like your mother or my grandfather.
Absolutely.
So I definitely understood. So
yeah,
I was happy I was able to be here for you. Honestly,
I appreciate it. But yeah, so when that loss occurs in the story, he's both emotionally devastated, but also it affects his work, and so he's not able to bring it like he previously was.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything gets shut down. He goes home, and it's funny. So I don't have brothers. I have one sister, but in this story, Josephus, he has two brothers, Jamin and Jaren, and like I said, since I don't have brothers, I kind of loosely base them on some cousins of mine that are brothers, right? And just that whole playful nature, the back and forth. I don't want to quite use the word fight because it's not true fighting, but it's that
brother fighting is different.
Yeah, it's the brotherly love, fighting nature.
Yeah, I got two brothers, so we fight all the time, but we don't fight. Like it's not like a we have beef thing. It's more like a
it's
gag reel type. I don't know. Yeah, it is hard to explain if you don't have it.
Right. And like I said, I couldn't work from personal experience, but I used peripheral experience because, like I said, I got the cousins who are a lot of fun to be both around and watch interact.
For sure.
And so, in the case of this particular story, I haven't given it the death in the family or battle for the cowl. What's another good one? I haven't given it a "this is the name of the story" undertitle, if you will.
Okay.
But in my mind, the go-to theme of this first issue is inheritance. I may end up giving it the actual name, inheritance.
Sub tagline.
But we'll see. The more I play with it, the more I go about it, I might figure out something that fits better, but for now, that's kind of, like I said, it's
gotta hit the ear right, though.
Exactly. And so that is the big takeaway from the return home for Josephus is the inheritance that he and his brothers get from their grandfather, Jovan, which is funny because that's not a name that I even knew existed, but I just had this running theme of everybody's name starts with a J. And so I don't even remember now who I asked, but somebody's like, I know somebody named Jovan. I was like, deal, like
that'll
work. And so with that, so Jovan is, I guess is the proper terminology for this time period, but he was a very prominent, thank you, person in the ability to know the value of ancient artifacts, and he had himself a rather large collection of cool things, but it secondarily also had a stock of money because people who want to know the value of things are willing to pay to know the value of said things. So he's got a large stock of money, and he enjoyed himself some fast cars. And so these three primary belongings are what he bestows upon his grandsons. Yeah. And so one of the brothers gets the car collection, one of them gets the stack of money, and the third, seemingly
dusty old artifacts.
Exactly, the seemingly successful but currently struggling voice actor gets the, like Josiah said, the dusty old artifacts. And so the funny thing to me is when I am conceiving of this artifact, the primary artifact, the one
that's important to the story.
Yeah, the Assad Quab artifact. I see it kind of, but not precisely, but pseudo in the way of the low-key mask from Jim Carrey's The Mask.
Ah, okay.
And so rough looking, if you will. Actually, I've got some images that I found on the internet that I kind of want to blend together to be this ancient mask. But like I said, I see it having similar qualities to that low-key mask, where if you put it on and you can mess with it and it don't necessarily do anything, but if you are of the right stock, that's when it will give you the extra abilities that this mask bestows upon the wearer. And
so it's a if you're worthy type thing.
Pseudo, yeah, basically the worthy gimmick, right? What's another good? Like a Green Lantern ring, right?
Oh, okay.
That's another way of looking at it.
Not just anyone can use that.
Correct. Yep. And so you have to have the right willpower in the case of a Green Lantern ring, and in this, like I said, it'll know if you're worthy to have it.
If you be worthy.
Yeah, and so I haven't quite nailed down the appearance, but ever since meeting Aaron, it's become less relevant what I think, because he's very as soon as I give him the slightest inkling, he's like, "Oh, off to the races," and I'm like,
"Nice.
Okay, that's not what I had in mind, but I like where you're going." Yeah. So it's really not what I would consider super important. Can you pull out the?
Yeah, I got you.
So I've got the basic headpiece concept worked on, and I do kind of envision a almost Sabretooth like mane. Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it, being part of the costume in general, but with, other than the headpiece and the mane of a lion, I'm fairly open to the artist's interpretation of the rest of the costume, because yes, the Assad Quab mask will give you strength and speed, not quite a rip-off of Wolverine when it comes to senses, but extra senses.
I'm about to say regular heightened senses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great hearing, great smell.
There's a science fiction show from the 90s that I liked called The Sentinel, and it's so it's about a cop who gets lost. Lost is probably too wrong, but abandoned also feels wrong. But anyway, he's stuck.
Yeah.
In the jungle, we'll say. Jungle might even be wrong too, but he's not in civilization. There we go.
There it is.
And he's so detached from the now that his mind opens up things from the past. And he has this professor friend who explains to him. He's like, "Oh, this is what every lookout for all the tribes of the area. That's how they got their job, is by being away from civilization, opening themselves up to new sight, new sounds, new smells. Yeah. The ability to do stuff." And that's the way I envision this character's powers being, is that attachment to an ancient artifact. Tradition. Well, tradition due to the artifact, yeah. And so it just, so there's elements of Wolverine, there's elements of Sabretooth, there's especially, I'll say, elements of Black Panther to the story.
Yeah, I kind of was picking up just looking at the design, Black Panther and Wolverine especially, but
yes.
Black Panther has more animalistic qualities when you look at his
absolutely
actual overall.
Like costume. I said, so think about this weird hybrid of Green Lantern, Black Panther, Wolverine, and Sabretooth. That's kind of where we're going with this Lionheart of Humanity character.
Yeah. Should be pretty dope.
Thank you. Yeah, I know that I ought to be a fan and ought to be excited, but that's just when I think about these stories, when I work on these stories, I just feel like, man, this is a hit. This is a thing that. So let me put it in this way, right? Yeah. how did you feel about Black Panther?
Love him to death.
How did you feel about Green Lantern?
Love him to death.
I mean, the movie.
Oh.
Because I knew that was a different answer.
Yeah. That is a completely different answer.
Right.
Terrible movie.
So, now, granted, I think there are a plethora of enjoyable Green Lantern comics.
There's a lot of Green Lantern comics that are good. There are a few Green Lantern cartoons that are good.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
But yeah, in movies, he hasn't had too much love.
Exactly. But what I was going to say was, taking elements of things that I enjoy, marrying them together, and putting them in such a way as to help make them, at least to me, universal. Because, like, to me, Black Panther has a little bit of a disconnect because it's a non-existent place.
Yeah,
Wakanda's not
technically not real, as far as we know.
Exactly. And my same point goes for Green Lantern, right? So the idea and the theme, good, but also space cops and alien planets of space
station.
Yeah.
Station.
So it's like,
there's a slight disconnect from the reality.
Whereas with mine, I try to keep so many things
down to earth.
Not just down to earth, but universally relatable. Like I said, the big things are the loss of family. If you haven't experienced it,
I hope you never do.
Unfortunately,
it's probably going to happen.
Yeah, because the more people you're close to, the more chance that at some point you will lose them.
Yeah.
Because that's just the nature of life, is that it ends.
Sadly, yeah.
And so like you said, that's universally relatable. The other thing that I feel like is very relatable is the give and take when it comes to, like, there's a part of Josephus that can be jealous of his brothers who got money or cars, but then in the end, when you see what it heightens within them, and then you see what his inheritance brought out of him, it's like now they potentially could be jealous of him. I don't really see that being a long-term thing, but it
could be.
Obviously, jealousy doesn't have to be long-term. It can even be a fleeting moment of like, oh man, why not me?
What about me?
And then when you move past it, then you can grow.
Yes.
And so that's just my point. Is like, even when there are things that make reference to recognizable properties, I try and bring it right back to universalities. Like I said, so I often say Everlasting Survivors. My first project is the Fantastic Four from Marvel if they all had Resurrection Man's powers from DC. But in reality, it's neither of those things. It's just me trying to help people understand what you're getting yourself into.
Try to get a comparison point so you know what you're getting into before you start.
Yeah, so, thank you for reading. Actually, do you got any takeaways that you want to bring up from the story?
So, one of the main things I noticed is obviously how, and you kind of touched on it already, but I still think it's a good takeaway to talk about, is how each brother handles their inheritance. So you mentioned one gets the cars, and like he's on the racetrack, and he's pretty much losing the title to his cars on the racetrack because he's losing races.
Yep.
The other one's gambling, buying expensive stuff, and then you have Josephus here, kind of like looking at this lion's mask, like, what am I supposed to make out of this? What am I supposed to think? And then he's like, like I can envision him playing around with the mask and putting it on, and then he gets these amazing, miraculous powers. It kind of like harkens back to the old "don't judge a book by its cover" mantra. Like, just because something looks good on the outside doesn't mean it is good, and just because something looks lame on the outside doesn't mean it is lame.
That's true.
So that was one of the biggest takeaways from the first 17 pages of Lionhearts of Humanity for me.
Yeah.
Because I think, like with most good comic books, you either, like, very few times, like, will you read and there will be, like, no, like, underlying message, even if it's, like, just the smallest thing, even if it's, like, don't text and drive or something.
Right, yeah,
real simple. Yep. From the last story we talked about, or anything like that. Yep. But just, like, there's always, like, something to tie back to life, which I think is important, so, I thought you did a really good job.
Oh, thank you.
Encapsulating this in the 17 pages we had.
I appreciate you.
For sure.
And thank you for partaking in this. Like, just being a part of opening up, expanding the
Gamble universe.
exactly now that. Well, and I just mean my comfort level in putting it all out there, because the first Reset-ember was me laying it all out. Here's what got me into wrestling, here's what I did in wrestling, and here's how wrestling led to me writing a comic and what came next. This is a new evolution of the way that I'm going to do things here. Like, I know that Aaron and BC Brute are a big part of it, because his excitement level and his desire to... Now, don't get me wrong, this is no knock on Jeff or Nick, because they also had that same desire.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that Aaron has over Jeff and more so than Nick is our ability to get together, because we're so close in proximity. And
yeah,
so it does, yeah, exactly. It just helps to be in the same place to help feed off of each other's excitement. But yeah, thank you, Josiah, and thank you, the viewer. Come back all next week for more content from Mr. Super Oz.